Welcome everybody to TectonicTakes. I'm your usual co-host Favi. I'm not actually at this interview, but I want to go ahead and introduce part 2 of the Ted Ramey interview. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.
It is interesting, and San Jose sports in general, like there's a lot of passion in that city, and it's in an interesting position in the Bay Area where it's the largest city in the Bay Area by population, but because San Francisco and Oakland, they're cultural centers and they're connected by the Bay Bridge, sometimes San Jose can sort of feel like the third wheel of the Bay Area of the three major cities. So this leads into the next question. How is it covering multiple sports for the Bone and KNBR? And is it a bit of a balancing act to make sure the Sharks and Earthquakes get a similar amount of love as the San Francisco and Oakland-based teams?
Yeah, I mean, like when I was at KNBR, they wanted you to talk about the Giants, the Warriors, and the 49ers first and foremost, because those three were there. Then the Warriors went to the game, and then it was the Giants and the 49ers first and foremost. They didn't really want you talking about the Sharks until it was the postseason. And they, were not really that big on doing much Quakes talk other than like, again, if it was the playoffs or something or opening day, something like that. The difference is like, and the Bone always gave me, they said, Ted, whatever you want to talk about, go for it. At KCBS though, because they're an all news station, when I do sports for them, they for sure want to make sure that you mention the South Bay because they know that it's the most populous city in the Bay Area, that there's a lot of people there. There's more people there than any other city. And they know that so many of the listeners feel like they're treated like the third wheel. And they care about the Sharks and they care about the Earthquakes. And it's just, you have to look at it in the vein of like the teams that were here first were the 49ers and the Giants and the Warriors and the A's. And that was what a lot of the old generation grew up with. And I'm not trying to be ageist here or anything like that, but like the Quakes and the Sharks came later. And
90s.
That's part. Yeah, I mean that's the dichotomy of how it breaks down. That's the way we look at this. And so I think that you get a lot of people who just aren't that into hockey, or like there was the Seals briefly in the Bay Area for a while, but they didn't last. And then like the games that people grew up were always football, baseball, and basketball. And then even then it changed. Like I talked to my dad about this, about how there used to be a much bigger market for Cal and Stanford and San Jose State football and basketball. As well as the San Francisco schools. And that all changed when, the shift in the 70s started happening towards particularly the Warriors. And then in the NFL, it went from being more of a college town to an NFL town with the Raiders and the 49ers. And so like there's an ebb and flow. And as we see it happening now, like I said, I do think that soccer and NBA will be the eventual kings because I think football is going to run into some trouble with insurance because of all the head injuries. And I think that's going to limit things. That's a whole nother discussion. But I think there's also less people that want their kids playing football. But I think that's, one thing soccer has going for it. And you have all these people in the South Bay. But I do think that like, that's one of the reasons why I looked at it. And why the thing with the Sharks started was because like, hey, like sports talk, it wasn't covering it. And, when I was at KNBR, I was pretty much me and Ryan Covey, who's now at the game. We were the only dudes who talked about the Sharks there really, unless it was the postseason. And Covey works for the Quakes on game day. He does social for them. Not right now during the pandemic, but Covey he's also a big soccer guy, Liverpool fan as well. But yeah, I mean,
I'm a United fan, so, but yeah, it's okay. That's okay.
But like there is that, they don't get enough talk, and it's unfortunate. And like that. Listen, that's what they do. They talk about the teams that they have on the air. That's fine, and they recognize that a lot of their listening audience just wants to talk about the Giants or the Warriors or the 49ers, and like the A's and the Raiders get that treatment to the same extent as well. Like the game didn't want to talk about the A's when they were on their airwaves. And I thought that was a mistake, but that's their prerogative. But I think that you're going to see more and more of the shift just because San Jose is becoming more and more of a power. And especially, I think that the pandemic is reshaping the Bay Area as they're going to be less, more people are going to be working home, not as many people driving into the city. And I think that there are people who were commuting to the city from other parts of the Bay Area who now might be more inclined to be more of a fan of the A's as opposed to the Giants, or be more of a fan of the Sharks as opposed to the 49ers. And I mean, it gets complicated too, because it's the San Francisco 49ers who play in Santa Clara County. And, it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, what, so which market are we trying to get here? The San Francisco market or this, it's complicated, but, it's things change. I guess that's the best way to look at it. And I don't think that the Earthquakes and the Sharks will be third wheel status forever. And I think you see it like, how did all these Giants fans get here? Generations of Giants fans. Mm-hmm. My kids are inundated with Earthquakes and Sharks gear. They have, I buy them hats and shorts and shirts and sweatshirts. And that's more the norm. And it's more the norm for people today to have grown up Sharks fans, and their kids will be Sharks fans. And it's more than a norm for people to have grown up as soccer fans now, and their kids have more of the opportunity to be soccer fans and be Earthquakes fans. And so it's a process, but like I said earlier, 2010 to 2020, and you go 1994 to 2002. I mean, it's just like, you look at these differences of time, things always change. And my dad always brings it up when talking about how popular the NBA is now. He's like, Ted, the NBA finals until the late 80s were on tape delay. He's like, they were not on live. He was like, I would say scores on KCBS, and he said people would call me to complain that I ruined the game for them. And he's like, I don't care. It's my job to tell the score. Like, the game's ongoing. And like, that was, they think about that. Like, that was not that long ago. Like, that was when Magic and Larry were starting to make the NBA really blow up, and they were on tape delay. And people try to say, oh, so, like, I heard, listen, I love Tom Tolbert, but he was like, soccer's never going to make it in America. He was talking about this a couple weeks ago. He's like, it's never going to be number one. That's just not how it is. And I'm like, but dude, it was tape delayed in the 80s until Magic and Michael and Larry changed the game. Like baseball used to be the unequivocal king. Now it's going to be passed in viewership by soccer in the next couple of years. Now, granted, there's Liga MX, Premier League, MLS, La Liga, Champions League, but still that means total viewership is going to soccer. It's already past hockey. And right now, baseball is only percentage points higher than soccer viewership in the United States. No one would have said that was possible 20 years ago. And if you don't believe me, there's a Gallup poll. Just search Gallup poll, soccer viewership surpasses hockey, and it'll list all this information talking about how soccer is only percentage points behind baseball now. And like, that's the thing, is like this, it's a changing dynamic. It's a changing market. It's a changing viewership idea. And so, yeah, like the NBA was not one of the top sports until it was. And dude, go back way before our time, boxing and horse racing were king. Certainly not anymore. I mean, like it changes. And I think that's, going to happen more and more with San Jose sports. And I think people will probably pay more and more attention, because you're going to have generations of Sharks and Quakes fans, the same way you have generations, of Giants and 49ers fans. So it's, there's nothing ever stays the same, right?
Got it. So how was it like working with such a big sports personality like Damon Bruce? I know a lot of our listeners come to our podcasts and other San Jose podcasts because Damon is like allergic to MLS. He barely talks about soccer in general. I think he maybe says 4 or 5 sentences total during the entire 2018 World Cup. And like, even that must have been painful for him. So, but he's a great personality, and he does a great job at his radio station, 95% of the game.
No, Damon's a good friend, and I love him to death. But he does not give an F about soccer. But here's the thing, is like, he is, I want to say he's like 45 years old. So that's 7 years older than me. And I was 13 at that first MLS game. Now, I'd say like the ages of 8 to 16 are your most impressionable sports years. Like, that's when you're most Like that's when like the imprint is made forever. And that's why Steve Young and Michael Johnson and Jerry Rice, you go down the list of those players, like those are the guys that are like icons in my head. So like Damon was already 20-ish when that started. So like he's already beyond that, and soccer wasn't like a thing in America. But like if you're under 40, the way I kind of look at it is like you had Major League Soccer and the World Cup come about at an impressionable age, and you had the Women's World Cup in 1999 coming about in an impressionable age, and you had the EPL come about in an impressionable age. And like kids that are, like 18 years old, like, dude, I go anywhere and you see kids wearing Manchester City or United kits, or you see them wearing, Barcelona, or you see them wearing Chivas. Like that's normal. I see more Messi jerseys walking around than I do like Buster Posey. Like I don't see anybody rocking like a Giants jersey around. Like I see a lot of kids wearing soccer stuff, or they're wearing like Steph Curry. Like that's like I look like, it's like is it the Simpsons meme where it shows Principal Skinner and he says, "Could I be wrong?" No, it's the children that are wrong. It's like, no, what does the 16-year-old kid think right now? Like they're not glomming on to baseball. Like, and I'm not trying to say this to be like anything against baseball, but it's like, you look at where the things that kids have the opportunity to watch and what they're paying attention to, like soccer for a 16-year-old is huge compared to what it is for a dude who's 45, because it's been more than norm of what he's grown up with. He's been able to watch the EPL and MLS and Liga MX and things of that nature. It's more normalized. And so when you have these normalized viewing behaviors, it's going to be more of what guys pay attention to. And I mean, again, the internet and like the way it changed the entire dynamic of streaming and watching all these games and Champions League, like it's more and more a thing. So, but like Damon, again, he doesn't care. And I'm not trying to say Damon's old either. I'm just saying like there is like a clear dividing line in my eyes with my friends, because I have friends who are like 42 and they don't care. I mean, and I'm not saying there aren't soccer fans who are over 40, there clearly are, but like, I see it the more I go from dudes I know that are like my age, 38, and you go down to like, keep on going, like 32, 28, 25, the younger you get, the more and more soccer fans you see, because it was a normalized behavior. And actually Major League Soccer is the only league in America where the fan base is actually getting younger right now. Previously, the only one that had been doing that was the NBA, and that trend has not continued as much recently. But Major League Soccer is still the only one where the fan base is getting younger. So I think that's kind of telling about soccer marketing and soccer metrics. And actually, I think some of the Major League Soccer commercials that have been out there recently have kind of had the same aesthetic that you've seen applied to the NBA, because the NBA does everything better than every league. They have been like very much the tone setters. David Stern was on top of it. Adam Silver's on top of it. They recognized that they were putting a minority face out there, that they were, that they're a league that was composed primarily of Black players. And they said, why are we just trying to appeal to middle-aged white men and their wallets? Which, listen, that's what you want to do in sports. You want to go to the money. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was like, you have a product that is, as much as it is being sold to white-owned businesses, it was like, you have Black players who represent the neighborhoods and the lifestyles of so many kids across America. And so they said, let's be that youthful league. Let's be like, yeah, we're proud. Like basketball has had no trouble getting themselves involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. I mean, you saw what happened with the Donald Sterling situation. It was like all that hardcore racism came out and they're like, see ya. Like to quote Ken the Hawk Harrelson, like he gone, he was out. Like it did not take long, because they were like, we are a league that has minority players driving our talent, like Michael Jordan, like Magic Johnson, like these dudes respond and elicit reactions from kids who don't have that same, this can get into a whole different discussion of society and politics in America, but it was like, you have the minority community in America represented so beautifully in the NBA, and they went hard in on that. And they didn't try and shy away from, they didn't try and make it more palatable to, like Midwest white America. And I'm not trying to say there's anything wrong with that, but it was like, they're like, we're going to go in on this, and it worked. And that's what the NBA has done so well. And I think that's what Major League Soccer is trying to do, is like, listen, like, we're a multicultural. There's people who are Hispanic. There's people who are Black. There's people who are white. There's people who are Asian. Like, we're going to embrace the melting pot, and they're putting that out there. And that's good. And like Chris Rock, who I'm a big fan of, like, he made the point of Black pop culture dictates what people find as cool. It was one of his stand-up acts. Or actually, no, he did it for HBO when talking about why baseball had such a low minority representation, specifically among the Black community. And he talked about how that's why baseball isn't as cool anymore. There aren't as many Black players. Black kids aren't attracted to it. If you don't have the Black youth market, it's not going to be considered quote unquote cool to America. And I think that's something that the NBA is totally leaned on there and be like, hey, yeah, we're not this, buttoned up. It's not baseball, right? Like, the NBA is not trying to be this total, like, they're letting their players be their individuals, and they're using the aesthetic of going after the youth. And I think Major League Soccer saw what the NBA did with that. And I think they're saying we have a lot of those same aspects. And the NBA has done such a great job of being like, you don't need to be rich. You don't need to be of status. You just need to have drive, and you need to be able to get a ball in a hoop. And I think that's what baseball used to be, kind of, but somehow in America we've screwed that up and made baseball expensive. Like, I don't know how we've done that. We've kind of done that with soccer too. Like, we've made soccer expensive.
Oh my
But if
gosh,
it's like, you look at like the marketing that some of Major League Soccer is doing, is like, they are showing young people of color, because that's what represents the world game. And obviously there's tons of young people who are white as well. And I'm not trying to draw dividing lines, but they're saying we like Major League Soccer is an incredible melting pot. Like, I'm talking about dudes from Ghana. I'm talking about dudes from Chile. I'm talking about guys from South Korea. I'm talking about guys from Portugal. Like, it's incredible. And it's awesome. Like, people always talk about it as like the world's game. And I don't think they understand that it's just like popular to the world. It's like, no, when I'm broadcasting a game in Major League Soccer, there are people from so many different nationalities. And I think it's amazing. Like, it blows me away that you have people from all different walks of life, all different corners of the world, multiple, like, not just like 2 languages being spoken, but like 6, 7, 8, 9, like, represented out there on the pitch. And they're all coming together for like to make this work and score a goal. Like, it's so cool. And like that, like I see with Major League Soccer is like, they've started to be like, hey, yeah, like, this isn't just one culture sport. This is everyone's sport. And you've started to see that a little bit more in their advertising when they like show, like, I think there was a Heineken ad that was a couple of years ago. They were showing people in a bunch of different kits hanging out, and they showed like people of every walk of life in it. And they were not trying to show like people of status or like people of like trying to look cool or trendy and hip or that. They were just showing like the community that's involved in soccer. And they were showing very young people. And I was like, this is smart. I was like, this is how you sell this more. The NBA showed it so successfully previously, incorporating hip hop, trying to be like more literally hip. And I've seen a little bit more of that from Major League Soccer. And I think that's the way to go with it, but it's cool. Like, I get mad at baseball a lot because I think they've done such a horrible job marketing their stars.
Rob Manfred.
Dude, like, Mike Trout could walk in like to any bar in America, and I don't think anybody would know who he is. Like, no one knows like what his face looks like. And like, he in Zlatan Ibrahimovic, where soccer is not the big sport here in the United States, he couldn't go around in LA because people would mob and fuck him. But like, Mike Trout walks around like anonymously. Like, I don't think Mookie Betts is getting like, nobody's like rushing him on the streets. Like,
maybe now, but like,
yeah, maybe now. Yeah. Like, dude, it's wild. Like, and I think that, Major League Soccer is definitely taking a page from the NBA and marketing themselves the right way. And like, you see that with everything getting younger in the fan base. It's fascinating to me. And it's the smart play. It's like, I view, and again, longer discussion into politics, social, economics, all these things. But like, I view the melting pot of Major League Soccer as such an incredible selling point. And I think it's so cool. Like, when I broadcast a game, that it's literally, I'm like people from so many different countries. I'm like, this is incredible. Like, it blows my mind. And I think it's so cool. I think it's such an awesome selling point.
I joke around, and I can think of all these different settings where it's going out to a bar or restaurant to watch a game, going to play pickup soccer, or going to an Earthquakes game or any sort of soccer game in the United States, that you could take a bingo sheet and cross things off based on the clubs and national teams and jerseys that are represented at that game. And you can make a game of it because so many different leagues, so many different clubs, and and this is where everyone's coming from. Everyone has so many unique experiences with soccer, and that is just another unique aspect that comes to them along with their personal traits that make them who they are.
It's awesome, man. Like you said, like you see it all. Like you go to an international game, or you go to just any league game, like you see it, the world so well represented. And I think it's awesome. And it's something that I'm happy to be associated with, because it's, again, longer political discussions, but I don't like, the president right now doesn't want to denounce white supremacists, and that rubs me the wrong way. And I like being associated with something like Major League Soccer that is so willing to take a stand on things like Black Lives Matter and has such awesome inclusivity, and is representing the world and people from all walks of life. And it's pretty cool. It's just, it's something. It's like, you want to be good, you want to be associated with something that puts out a good product, but you like also the fact that you can look at this and be like, they are taking the right cues on a societal side of things and being like, we're going to stand for something that's bigger than ourselves. And I know that some fans get turned off by that, but I'm sorry, like there's things that are bigger than soccer that these players can use their platforms for, and I'm proud that they do so.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, no one's gonna complain here about what the MLS is doing with that. I mean, it's a great thing that they're doing. And I mean, so you've been talking about how MLS is on the rise, and for us, the question we have, I'm going to kind of rephrase it, is how do we see that it's all going on the rise? How do we get more radio stations to help the climate of soccer in the United States?
I'm not sure that it's even quote unquote radio stations. I think it's more stuff like this, like podcasts. Like fans are so good at finding what they want to find, like the radio, sports talk radio is dominated by the NFL primarily, and then local market baseball, and there is some NBA in there, and then it's kind of everything else. But you guys do this. You're not the only Quakes podcast. You're not the only soccer podcast. Like there's a lot of people in there who have this fan interest and want to go out there and produce content, and there's a thirst for the content. And in my opinion, it's like there literally can't be enough content for anybody that's not the NFL. It's like the NFL is literally, I can't walk out the door without being told an injury report about a team. It's unbelievable. It's like, I wish I was joking, but like, I feel like it is that way. It's like, open the front door and it's just like, bam, like it's, that's how the NFL is. And they've done a great job of, the NFL is brilliant at making news out of everything. But everybody who's a soccer fan in the United States, and again, I keep on making this dividing line of like above and below 40 years old, is they're internet savvy. They know how to find these podcasts. They know how to find, they know Sirius XMFC, and they go and they find what they want to listen to. And they know that it's available on Patreon. They know it's available on different podcast platforms. They know it's available on YouTube, and you have people putting out the content. And I think it's cool because you don't get as much of the, I love what ESPN is. Like I respect what they do and what they are, but it's also such a production at times. It's like, sometimes I want to listen to guys like you talk about a team. I don't want to hear about all the guests, and I don't want it to be, it's not contrived. It's like, I know sometimes when I'm watching Stephen A. Smith, I'm like, he doesn't believe this. He just wants to be upset about something. And that's cool because that's showbiz. And I understand, for the sake of an argument, I have said things that I don't agree with because I know it'll elicit reaction. That's cool. And I understand that's part of it. And everybody does that, whatever. But it's so produced at that level that it loses something. And that's because it has to be accessible to everyone. You have to have kind of not bland, but kind of like wide reaching statements so that everybody can say, I disagree with that, and tweet about it and stuff. But like, for an Earthquakes fan, I think they want to hear two guys talk about the team to have their feelings and their fandom validated. They want to see if people disagree or agree with them, and they don't want to deal with the BS that's maybe associated in some of the bigger conversations. And I think that we get that with the different podcasts that are out there with SiriusX MFC. And like, if it does become more of a talking point on radio, that's great, because I think that that'll be more of a sign of how successful soccer in America has become. And if it gets to that point, great. But I think right now there's no lack of content. Like, dudes are doing an incredible job of getting it out there. And I think that, you know, that's the way it's got to be. Like, there's a grassroots feeling about it that I think is that people want more than the heavily produced ESPN stuff. Not again, and I totally get where that comes from, and I think they're great at it. But I think, you know, my bad buddy complaining to me today. He's like, Terry Bradshaw just made a statement about the 49ers. He's like, he said they're getting healthy. He's like, why does he think that? He's like, the 49ers are not healthy at all. He's like, they just beat an overrated Patriots team. He's like, but they might as well have leprosy. They're not getting healthy. They just beat him. And he's like, Terry Bradshaw doesn't know anything about the 49ers. And like, he was complaining. This like, you know, probably not. He's got to know a little bit about every team, and that kind of takes away. But like, you guys have an intimate, in-depth knowledge about the team, where I think somebody who's interested in the Earthquakes is going to get more out of that than if they listen to something that was going to quick hit on all the big topics in the sports world that might hit on the Earthquakes and might not. You know, they know how to get it. But again, if we get to the point where soccer is being discussed more on sports talk radio in general, then that's all good for soccer. That just means things continue to trend in the right direction.
Yeah. So you're also one of the play-by-play commentators for the Oakland Roots. So some could say you are a voice of Bay Area sports. What impact do you think the Oakland Roots will have on the Bay Area soccer scene and of San Jose Earthquakes?
You know, I think the Roots are doing all the good things that they can. They're really good at activating the community. I think it sucks that everything they did in their first year got kind of washed by the pandemic, because I know they were planning on doing more stuff this year. You know, they do really good with their marketing. They have a really cool logo. They've been doing the Oaklandish style stuff. They're just good for the Bay Area, because I know that, like, you know, also this is trying to think of the best way. Not everybody wants to drive to San Jose. So like, let's just get that out of the ordinary. Not anybody. It's just like people who live in, you know, Santa Clara or Marin, who are 49ers fans. They don't want to drive to Levi's Stadium. And then people who live in Concord don't always want to drive to San Francisco to see a Giants game. And so like, they might end up going to an A's game, you know? So if there are people who live in, you know, Oakland, who don't want to go to San Jose, now they have an option to go watch some soccer, and some good soccer in their backyard. And I'm not trying to, you know, because I know people in San Jose are like, oh, come on, man. Like, what? Like, I get it. I understand the arguments. They don't want to hear me saying that, but it's true. Like, people, like, traffic in the Bay Area, even a pandemic, is unbelievably bad. So like, if you have the Oakland Roots right there, what essentially you're doing is you're giving people an option to watch. And I think that they had a good product, and they've had a good product, and people have been enjoying it. It's just unfortunate people can't go out the way they could and see it. And now that they're USL, you know, I think that's going to do good things as well. And it just shows that there's more of a market for soccer. And I think that, you know, you can be a Roots fan and an Earthquakes fan as well. And I hope they keep on, you know, just keeping it going forward. I mean, you get worried about the long-term effects of this pandemic stuff, man. It's like these teams need these gates. I mean, everything but the NFL, in my opinion. The NFL could operate in a sound stage with their TV contracts. Every other sport in America needs people in the stands. I mean, because it's better for people and the athletes, but like, you need the money, you need the revenue, you need the money coming in. And for smaller organizations, I mean, look at what happened to minor league baseball this year. Just communities that live off that stuff. And think of all the broadcasters that were put out of work, and think about all the concession workers, and think about, I mean, in the Bay Area, we're like, oh, we have all these teams and there's people who work. It's like, yeah, but like, what about all the businesses? Like, it's the people who got put out of work at the stadiums. It's the people who own all the businesses around the stadiums, and people who work for those businesses that are, you know, independently owned around the stadiums and stuff. Like, it's just, you hope that there's no long-term impact, that they can weather the storm, and that we can get our act together with this stuff so that we can get back to having fans in the stadium. Like, I know that the Roots have good financial backing, but like, you know, so does everything until all the revenues stop. I mean, it sucks. They you know, these people are all being hurt by it. You know, there's Fans are at sporting events for a reason.
Yeah, so Oakland Roots are going to be very interesting to see play in the USL Championship in 2021. Knock on wood. Hopefully that goes as planned. And it's going to be interesting for me personally because I am from Oakland, so I have a rooting interest in Oakland Roots. I went to college at UC Davis, so I went to Sacramento Republic games. Reno
Nice.
happened to be the USL affiliate of San Jose Earthquakes, and now I currently live in San Diego, so I have that connection to San Diego Loyals. So my USL loyalties are all over the place, but I'm so happy because having lived in all these places, I know that there's a proud soccer culture across the state of California, and we can include Nevada in there to include Reno. Then it's great. I think all these places deserve to have some level of soccer to cheer for. And the reality is, like, there is a finite level of MLS expansion. We don't know yet where it is, but they will reach it at some point. And just like in any other league system in the world, we can talk about promotion and relegation in depth another day, but the way you get more and more of these communities involved is through building a soccer system that goes multiple divisions deep. And I think the USL Championship and all the USL leagues are doing a great job these last 5 to 10 years building that foundation. And the quality of play, watching USL Championship matches on ESPN Plus has been pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, like, you have ESPN Plus now. Like, that's, people didn't have the ability to watch USL stuff as widely as they did. There were independent streams of stuff, and now people can check it out. And like, before games, at Earthquakes games, since ESPN Plus has had everything, like, me and Joe would be watching Reno games, and like on the way back from games on the bus with the Earthquakes, a bunch of the players, and myself included, we all be on our phones live streaming Reno's games, or watching, the playoffs, or seeing what Sac Republic was doing, or seeing what, Indy 11, whatever it was, we would be watching those games. And like, you have that availability. I mean, that's what the internet makes so amazing. I know there's still like a lot of trouble in totally figuring out all the ratings for the streams and live events that are on TV at the same time. But I'm like, it's available. Like, there's a market for it. And now people are able to watch it, and people are able to, like, the minute you have more of that accessibility, you have the ability to grow a fan base. And there's no reason you can't be a fan of Reno 1868. And now that Sacramento is moving to Major League Soccer, assuming everything operates as normally going forward, is like, you can be a fan of Reno 1868, and the next geographic close team is Sacramento. Even if you are the affiliate of the Earthquakes, maybe you find it's easier to take that quick flight to Sacramento out of Reno, and it's less expensive than it is San Jose, whatever your reasoning is. Or maybe you do want to be an Earthquakes fan. Like, it's accessible. Like, that's the exact same thing you had with the EPL before, is that suddenly, who had it first? Fox Sports had it, and then it went to NBC, but it was accessible in the United States, and there was a market for it. And as soon as there's a market for it, and as soon as you get people paying attention to it, success begets success. More people are going to glom on. And obviously there's a relative limit for all these things, but it's still the availability, like just having the streams and the opportunity to watch these things. It makes it awesome. You didn't have that before. And that's, I think that, there was such a blockade. It was like, you had the big three in North America, which are football, baseball, basketball, dominating the television. Hockey also is, the next one. And then soccer now, because there's so much availability with the internet, you have the ability to grow the fan base in a whole different way. And especially the people who were there all along now feel validated that they can watch all these streams and have this new access to it that they never did before. And it's like me, like, as soon as the German soccer came back from the pandemic, I started watching more Bundesliga than I ever did before, because I could go get a stream of it. I could sit there and prep for a game and put on, something on my iPad and have it on. And like, I wasn't doing that as much before, but like, suddenly I could stream it and it was on. Like, you have the availability and the opportunity that wasn't there before. It's awesome.
All right. Yeah. And just looking at some of the players on the Oakland Roots roster real quick, there's some familiar names there. Nana Decora, there's Nelson Blanco, a young Salvadorian, Tristan Bowen, Jack McInerney, the former MLS Super Draft first overall pick. So Oakland Roots are not messing around. They're going to try to be competitive in their first year, similar to San Diego Loyal were this year. So it's going to be exciting to watch. And I think it's coming at an interesting time for Oakland with the Warriors. They're still just across the bay in San Francisco, but also the Raiders moving to Las Vegas. So maybe it can fill even a fraction of that void, and that would be great for the community.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it sucks that listen, money talks, and that's why the Warriors left. And, the Raiders couldn't get anything done here with the stadium. That's why they went to Las Vegas. But like, I look at it in the viewpoint of like how much local representation there is for, young kids in Oakland. It's like, if you were a young kid in Oakland, if you're a young black kid in Oakland, you could point to Marshawn Lynch, or you could point to Steph Curry and be like there could be that. I understand that. Like, I have that immediate, it's like, who do you associate yourself with? And now those are gone. And like, that sucks. And like, especially because, like there's problems of gentrification in Oakland, and there's just the squeeze on the minority community in general. It's like, you having that ability to identify with these local athletes taken away, I think really sucks. And like, again, I know money talks. Like, we can go down that road all day and never reach a different conclusion, because that's just how it is. But I think the Roots offer a little bit of that. It's like, you have the opportunity to see people from every walk of life right in your backyard again. Like, the community is involved. And if you give community the ability to identify and involve themselves with what you're offering on the field, because like, even if we want to talk about what sport it is, it's entertainment. And if a kid who is white, black, Argentinian, Indonesian, whatever it is, if he goes to an event and sees an athlete on the pitch that he identifies with, and sees his community also surrounding himself and identifying and cheering with that athlete, that's only going to have a net positive, right? That's why I think it's crappy that, the Warriors left, because like, the Warriors were so resoundingly Oakland. Like, the Raiders, like, we can talk all day about Al Davis going to LA and then back, and whatever. But like, the Warriors were so supremely Oakland, and like, that energy in the building, it was working class. You had people blue collar in there. And that's why it made it so amazing to watch them go from an absolutely adrift franchise under Chris Cohen to getting the new ownership in there, and suddenly having Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and those guys all being drafted and built up in the team, and just everybody glommed onto them. And it was so real. It was so natural. And that's gone. I mean, I know it's across the bay, but like, tickets are way more expensive. And it's in this shiny, brand new building that's so corporatized. It's so just, it's beautiful, but it's not, it's not the Coliseum Arena. It's not Oracle. It's, Oracle, there was history when you walked in the building, like, you knew that guys like Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan had played here, and that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson made their names here, and that, the We Believe Warriors happened there. Like, that's all gone. It doesn't happen there anymore. And so for the Roots, there is that void now. And like, I think that it has the opportunity to have that same type of organic feel to it, because soccer is on the rise in America, and like, there can be a buildup, and this offers kids the opportunity to really see the game up close and personal at an accessible, affordable level, which is what you want sports to be. I mean, that's, again, I can bring up these long conversations about affordability and things like that. And now, like, they're providing another option for that. They're providing kids the aspect and the ability of seeing somebody that represents their community, and somebody they can go out there and identify with, and go out and watch and be entertained. Like, it has all those things kind of wrapped up in and of itself. And so you hope that it does grow and offer those things that have now been left, as a void, in Oakland in particular. So, I hope that they are given the opportunity, that this pandemic calms down, that people can go out there and watch them do their thing. I think it's awesome.
Do you think there's a chance that the Oakland Roots could make it to that MLS, or do you think the presence of Sacramento will kind of damper that?
I think Sacramento and the Earthquakes, I think they have the two rights on quote unquote Northern California teams. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's technically what it's allotted for. And obviously everything can change. But I don't think it would happen at least not anytime soon. But I mean, if you want to go long term, you would say you would love the idea of Northern California being able to put Sacramento and San Jose and an Oakland team in Major League Soccer. But then you get into the whole arguments of territorial rights and things like that, which I think are just allocated to Sacramento and San Jose right now. But it would be cool. I mean, like,
Yeah.
It's like the idea of the league growing to that point where it could sustain all of that. That would ultimately that'd be good for everyone.
All right. So then now we want to talk a little bit about your show. So in your show, The Soccer Hour, do you know how many episodes that you have recorded? Because we're curious, because like as we run a podcast as well, like it's just fun to like celebrate those milestones.
Yeah, and I thought about this before. We started doing it a week before the season began in 2016, and it's been once a week ever since. So right. I think we're probably getting close to 300 episodes. Yeah. Some of a couple of them have been best ofs, usually around like Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'll put together some good interviews from the past, and kind of use that as just kind of like, okay, like this is what we're going to do this week, and just kind of use some older stuff. But which is kind of like the norm of what they do on 680 when it's the holidays, they do best of shows. But yeah, so I mean, I guess we got to be closing in on 300 shows. I don't have the exact number. What I'll do now is I'll go after every invoice I have and see how many episodes we've actually done. But yeah, I mean, we like just doing the straight math like that. It's got to be closing in on 300.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it. No need to make you do all those digging, but yeah, it's pretty cool. Congratulations on the work you've done there.
Thank you. Yeah, we have fun with it. It's it used to be just me, and then Marv joined because he's been working for the Quakes, which is cool because like before it was me, and then I would bring on the interview guests and talk about subjects around soccer. But it's like the same thing as like with Joe on the color commentary for the broadcast. Like me as a guy who never played, there's only so much I can see, no matter how much I study, no matter how much I watch, no matter how much I try and learn. I'm limited just because Joe and Marv on the Soccer Hour, they played it. They have experience that I can never have. Like I said, unless I get that call up, seems a little bit shaky. I'm never going to know what it's like to be in the locker room. I'm never going to know what it's like to, be in a, 93rd minute trying to cross one in to Wando. Like these things that's just not, it's never going to be part of my arsenal. So with Marv on it now, like I get his perspective, and Marv's just the coolest dude in the world. And it sucks that his career got cut short by the heart issue, because he'd still be playing today and would still be one of the fastest guys in the league. And he would probably still be playing with the San Jose Earthquakes, and it would be awesome. And it's, that's life. I'm mostly happy that Marv is healthy over everything else, and that they discovered this problem before it was something entirely different. But his medical issue with his heart turned into an overall positive for me on the Soccer Hour, because now I get to talk to Marv every week and get his takes on things, and get his perspectives and his unique viewpoints, and talk to him about who he thinks is kind of a punk in the league and who isn't. So I enjoy the hell out of that. And it's fun to be able to represent soccer, give people an option on 1050, to be able to hear soccer talk and hear about US. I mean, we mainly keep it US soccer and Major League Soccer, but we do talk about some of the big stuff that's going on in Europe, international play, just because, you don't want to seem, that's what everybody's talking about. You want to talk about everything. But yeah, I mean, we have fun with it, and it's cool to be able to give people that opportunity to turn on KMBR 1050 and hear some soccer talk, hear Marvell Wynn talking about what he thinks is going on, with Atlanta, and, hear me opine about what I'm seeing on the pitch with Seattle. It's cool.
So for just me and any other of our fans that listen to our podcast, where else would they, listen to your show? Is it just strictly on, 1050?
It's on 1050 Wednesday nights at 6. It's also found on anywhere you find podcasts. KMBR puts all their shows up on the podcast network, so it's up there. Just search Soccer Hour and you'll be able to find it. And then trying to think if there's anywhere else they would find it. Yeah, I mean, I guess you can go to KMBR.com and go to I think they have a download or links section there of where you can find podcasted episodes as well. But yeah, I mean, it's it's the standard form. But yeah, I mean, that's what's cool is like this is another thing that didn't exist before the internet is like if you missed the soccer radio program that happened to be on in your market, like, well, you were kind of ass out of luck. You weren't gonna be able to find it again. But now, with podcasting and the ability to go back and listen to stuff that was on the air, you have that. So again, the internet has helped soccer, I think, more than any other sport has been helped. It's at least in America, just because there were all these fans who didn't have the opportunity for it before, whereas now you get the opportunity to go and listen to something you might have missed.
Yeah, that is a great thing to have. And being from San Diego, I mean, living in San Diego now, I do miss a lot of the radio stations and shows that I've listened to in the Bay Area. So I enjoy perusing those websites and finding those shows and everything there, and still feeling connected, as well as still following my favorite hosts on Twitter too. So
where do you live in San Diego?
So I live in this neighborhood called Scripps Ranch. It's on the northeast corner of San Diego, on the border of San Diego and Poway. Yeah,
I was about to say that's out in Poway because I think Marv went to Poway High, and I lived in San Diego for a while from 2002 to 2005. I lived in La Jolla and Linda Vista, and my spot for the California burrito, because I know this is every California wants to talk about their California burrito favorite. I used to go to the Santanas off of SeaWorld in Tecolote off the 5. Like that to me is like my benchmark for a California burrito. I will always consider Santana's to have the best. Do you have a burrito?
Oh yeah. There's this Mexican restaurant that's maybe a 2 to 3 minute drive. It's called El Patron, and their California burritos are amazing too. And I'm sure there's dozens of others in San Diego that I will love to enjoy. Some I already have. I've been here a bit over a year, so still need a little bit more time to explore a few different nooks and crannies of this beautiful city, but once it's safe to do so, a bit more.
Nice, yeah.
Speaking of Marvel Wynn, so you recently added Marvel Wynn to the show, and we're going to have him on the podcast soon. And we want to know a little bit more about how that came to fruition, who reached out to who first, and how that came to be.
He was doing work for the franchise after his playing days ended, and I think they wanted to use him in as many capacities as they could, because they've had him do other pregame stuff. They've had him do social media stuff. And I think they knew that he wanted to do some broadcasting stuff. And they said, we have Ted Weekly do this, soccer show for us on 1050. And so they said, Ted, do you want to have Marv on with you? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was like, somebody, because you can only there's a reason why there aren't that many solo shows left in sports radio. It's all gone into partnerships. It's like, on 1050 with my regular talk show, I did that for 3.5 years, just like every day talking to myself mostly. And you can only do so much with yourself because you get into this weird stream of consciousness where you're disagreeing and agreeing with yourself to try and juxtapose ideas and explain yourself. Whereas Marv and I can just straight up debate something, and you can bring your kind of point of view a little bit more clearly and succinctly to get him to bounce it back and agree or disagree. And you can kind of, riff on each other and make fun and do all those things. Whereas you can't do that when you're by yourself. So yeah, I love having Marv on with me, and I can talk forever, whatever, but having Marv specifically there with him, it makes it just a little bit more, I think, engaging overall. And for the listeners, I think that I probably represent more of them because, like I alluded to before, I'm never going to be able to have the perspectives that Marv has, but I can bring the same perspective that a lot of the listeners have, where is you're saying, why did this happen? Why did he do this? What was the thinking here? And Marv can give his athlete's perspective on what I see as more of having the outsider's perspective, because I was never a professional athlete.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think having that mix of perspectives definitely helps. And just having that second person too can make some of those tough moments when you're doing a radio show or a podcast go away. And I learned this from experience when I first started the TectonicTakes podcast. The first couple of shows were just me before Favi came on board, and then Will joined us too. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just like when it's by yourself, it's like it's not the most natural way of talking. It's like, you're like, oh, okay. How do I, like, you try to run into yourself a little bit much. So yeah, but Marv's the man. Like, he's such a nice guy. And again, like I will forever be bummed. I mean, it worked out well for me that I have a partner now with Marv on the show, but like, just the fact that his career got shut by like a heart thing out of the blue, like it just sucks. Like, Marv should still be playing. He's 34. Like, he's still in great shape. Like, he still has, I think, the desire. And like he said, he was super down about it for a while, and he was depressed after it happened, and he worked through that. And he's a great dude and just worked his ass off, and he deserved the opportunity to go out on his own terms, and he was denied that. Which, you feel for the guy, because nobody ever knows when, like, when it's going to be their last time of doing everything. Like, we often assume that we'll get the opportunity to know when it's going to be the end. And, Marv didn't have the opportunity to officially retire. And this is a guy who, represented the United States at the Olympics, represented the United States at the international level for soccer competition, was, one of the shut down right backs and occasionally center backs and occasionally defensive midfielders. He was a guy that was a reliable, just good player in Major League Soccer. And then suddenly it was over. Suddenly it went from being like, hey, let's get ready for the 2017 season, to we found an abnormality with your heart, to you're in open heart surgery. Like, it's a guy, I'm sure he felt invulnerable going into that. He was like, he's like, I'm in the shape of my life, getting better with age, ready for this season. And then boom, suddenly it all comes to an end. And, like I said, it worked out well for me, but there's always going to be a part of me that's just hurts for Marv, because he's such a good person, and he deserved to have the opportunity to go out on the way he wanted to go, which, like I said, he'd still be playing today, I'm positive, were it not for this heart thing that came out of the blue.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've gotten to learn how, like, you are a very busy man. And I mean, has any of this kind of all been on, you have to do multiple things all in one day, or have you kind of just planned it out best that,
No, I mean, like, there have been days where literally I have, like, I'm trying to think what was a recent example. Before the pandemic, there was a day that I did morning sports at KCBS. So I was at KCBS from 5 a.m. to about 11:30, got home, recorded the soccer hour with Marv, emailed it over to the people at KMBR, drove to the Earthquakes to do the game. And then concurrently, the Sharks were going on, and I had to get notes from my buddy because it was during the playoffs, and we were doing a morning tide every day. Usually during the season, morning tides once a week. Playoffs, it's after every game. So I had my buddy take notes because I only got to see the third period. So then I had to go and record morning tide as soon as the Earthquakes game ended. And it was like literally from like 5, I got to KMBR at 5 a.m. to KCBS at 5 a.m., which may not have been up for a while at that point. So like the day literally started probably out of bed at like 2:30 and then got home at like 1 a.m. Like there are days that are like that are just crazy. But like I always, like, 4 days that are crazy like that, I'm like, I'm getting paid to talk about sports. Like it's really really fun. Like, like it's not everybody wants to do it because it's like my friends look at me like, dude, I know you're getting paid to talk about sports, but that's absolutely insane. I'm like, yeah, it's a little harsh. There was some coffee involved, but it's fun, like you get to do things that you love, and with it is some craziness, and broadcasting is an inherently wild industry where you can get, fired at a moment's notice for something that has nothing to do with you. And that's just how it goes. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, there are days like that are really long and you do multiple different jobs. But again, it's talking about sports and going and getting the opportunity to perform and do these things that you really enjoy. And, it's part of the territory. It's hard, it's long, but dude, it's super, It's super fun. Like it's worth the sleep that comes hard and fast as soon as your head hits the pillow when you get home.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like an incredible experience. We're glad to be a part of this community in the podcast realm, and who knows what the future might hold. But what are some of the other podcasts you enjoy listening to? You can include soccer podcasts, you can include sports podcasts, or maybe there's some other genre that you really enjoy and you'd like to share.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to Extra Time, the official MLS podcast, because I always want to get the national perspective. And unlike a lot of national perspectives, the guys on MLSsoccer.com really, really know their stuff. Matt Doyle, Andrew Wiebe, Kalen Carr, David Goss, like all those guys, they're really, really good. I really enjoy their takes. Susanna Collins as well. They know all their stuff inside and out, and I really enjoy what they do. I listen to Sirius XM-FC. I know that's not a podcast per se, but I'm good friends with Brian Dunseth, of course, who's one of the two co-hosts of Counterattack, and he does the RSL TV for their color announcing. He does some color for ESPN and Fox Sports sometimes as well. But I listen to that, and I also listen to Jason Davis's United States of Soccer on that. I listen to Men in Blazers sometimes. I listen to ESPN FC sometimes. I trying to think what other soccer podcasts do I listen to. I mean, I learned about your guys' podcast through Reddit because I'm on the subreddit for the San Jose Earthquakes. I'm always lurking. I don't post a whole lot because I worry people think that I'm just going to be a shill, but that's how I learned about you guys initially. I've listened to, trying to think, Black and Azul, which is another, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention a rival podcast on here.
No, it's okay. I watch those podcasts too, so that's totally fine.
But like, that's the thing is we need more of this stuff in the soccer community because like I said, with the NFL, you can't walk out the door without having something. She's like, did you hear about the bowel movement Tom Brady had this morning? It's like, bro, like I just woke up. But that's how it is, man. Like, and so I want soccer to be like that. I want Major League Soccer to be at that level where I'm like, it's unavoidable. So like you like, for me, my perspective is like, it's like 1 hour a week of the soccer hour is not enough. Then it's on you guys, and then it's on Black and Azul, and then it's on all the other dudes who are out there doing podcasts and other multimedia ventures. Like it's awesome. Like we need it. Like, and I love it. But like that's, so those are like the ones that I listed are my main soccer ones. And then outside of soccer, because I'm a white male in my 30s, I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. I don't agree with a lot of Joe Rogan's takes, but he's very entertaining in his guests. I don't know if you guys saw the one he did yesterday with the conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
Ooh, check that out.
it's so insane and crazy, but like it's hilarious. So I listen to that because he has people on. And I listen to a lot of the NPR stuff, This American Life, WNYC Radio Lab. I've been listening to the Rich White Parents podcast that they put out, which is about public schools in New York. I've been trying to, what's some of the, like whenever there's a good true crime podcast, I'll listen to that. My favorite one was the Monster one that I think that was a Wondery production that they did on the Atlanta child murderers. And they've also done one on the Zodiac Killer. And they also did one on the DC Sniper. That's a good series. The TED Radio Hour is good, and that's not just an egotistical thing. That's a little TED Talks thing. But yeah, I mean, like, thing is, like, growing up with a dad who was in radio, like, I've always been all about the auditory medium and being able to listen to stuff. So, like, I driving to San Francisco and San Jose and Oakland and getting everywhere around, like, I'm listening to a lot of the radio stations. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm listening to Sirius. So I try to take a lot in and keep well-versed and keep aware of everything that's going on and not just get stuck in sports. I mean, most of my listening is sports just because that's what I do. And I want to hear other people have, and like, it serves as prep in a way. Like, it's super cool that I can go and like drive to a game and listen to a podcast about the Colorado Rapids. Like, that wasn't a thing 15 years ago. Like nobody was doing a rapid. I mean, it's possible. I don't think they were, but like that was not around. So now like I have that opportunity of been like, I can do all the research in the world, but because I'm not a Rapids fan or media member, there's just going to be stuff that I inherently might not be aware of. So if I go find a podcast, then I'm going to be made aware of it, because the media journalist and the fan aspect of that's involved in all of that, like I'm going to learn something that I didn't know. So it's cool. Like that's like the great thing about podcasts is that now they offer so much more than what just traditional sports talk radio offered before. Do you guys think there's any, other than your own program, obviously, is there anything I should be listening to that you guys are currently in on?
I think one that we've had guests on before is Quakes After 90. I mean,
Oh,
for
yeah.
another one. I mean, I figured you probably heard of them. I mean,
Yeah.
you just named like 1,000 podcasts. I mean, I don't know if we have any more to add on after that. But I don't know, Ivan. You think of anyone on top of the head that after he didn't name after?
So a lot in the realms of soccer, I think we covered like the Quakes ones for sure. There might be a few others, and they're good too, because the Quakes community as a whole is so knowledgeable about the sport. So definitely check out as many as you can. In terms of soccer, I listened to Alexi Lawless's podcast. I think he's an interesting person. He's one of those people where like you either agree or disagree with him on most things. Like there's very little like in between, but like he does offer a really valid perspective. And in some other genres of podcasts I listen to, like my introduction to podcasts was through reality TV, such as Survivor and Big Brother. Rob has a podcast is the main one that I listen to. That's the podcast where I really like listened to almost every podcast that came out in some points like during college and stuff. So yeah, it's a great big world out there when it comes to podcasts. So
Nice.
we're glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a super cool medium. And I think more of traditional radio probably should be learning about what podcasting has been doing. But again, that's another long-winded discussion for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aside from like the U.S. and San Jose related soccer stuff that obviously we've been talking about, and like I know we mentioned some other leagues, but is there any other ones you really actually just key and follow on that you really pay attention to other than these ones?
I try to pay attention to the EPL, but it's hard because like when a lot of people are watching those games, I might have other stuff going on, like like having to do the sports reporting for KCBS is like I'm trying to pay attention to the Giants and A's and Niners and Warriors and Quakes and Sharks. But like I keep up on the EPL and I try and keep aware of like Champions League stuff. But like if I had more, I would make sure I was more in on La Liga as well, because that, the super teams in that league are just unbelievable. And like I said, I really enjoyed when I was getting into the German league when they were the first team back from coronavirus, and then Major League Soccer started coming back, and that kind of started taking all my attention away. But yeah, I mean, like, and I'd like to get more into Liga MX as well, just because it's our neighbor and they have a lot of good teams, like what Monterrey has become, what Chivas has historically been. It's just like there's a lot of cool storylines that we associate with them. But yeah, I mean, like mainly I stick with MLS and US soccer and the international stuff, but like the next closest one would be the EPL for me, just because it's so readily available. And like I said, on the weekends, on the morning, I can get up and I can, have my coffee and watch that and get ready with it. And the great thing is when we're on the road on the East Coast, it's actually on at a reasonable time. It's like, that's the thing about living in California is you're like, all right, it's 5:30. I'm going to drink my coffee and watch this. And it's like, it's a little bit different when it's like 9:00 in the morning and you're like, oh, I'm, more naturally awake now. And I'm watching, Everton. This is a bit more normal. So, but yeah, I mean, the EPL would be the next closest one that I keep the closest tabs on. Speaking of Everton, I don't know if anybody had them, kind of shooting out of the gate like this, but there's a long way to go. So we'll see what it has to bring. And also about Leicester being up there once again. That was the coolest story in like 50 years, a couple years ago when they won the league title, riding the exploits of Jamie Vardy at that point. But it'll be cool to see where this all goes. And then Marv, like Ryan Covey, is a big Liverpool fan. So, there might be some texting during the year that's antagonistic towards them. And not that I'm particularly anti-Liverpool. I'm just into giving Marv and Ryan Covey a hard time sometimes.
Yeah, so for me, the three leagues that I follow the most, the ones that I have a club that I root for the most being, so Liga MX is a Chivas fan. My family came from the state of Jalisco in Mexico, and Chivas were a huge deal. They're essentially like, that's their Lakers. Like, it's an incredible team. And then obviously growing up in the Bay Area, I grew in attachment to San Jose Earthquakes. And then Manchester United were just one of the first few teams in Europe that I heard of. And then I started watching them, and it was incredible. And I enjoyed following them ever since. And then like the tier two leagues that I follow are the leagues like the Bundesliga, La Liga, Serie A, Liga 1, a little bit of Eredivisie. And then here and there, I enjoy popping in at the USL Championship. I started following that a bit more as here in the Beautiful Game Network, that the majority of the podcasts are USL based, and there's a few of us MLS, but it's very much USL as well. And sometimes I find myself checking the league tables of so many random leagues. Like, I'll check J League, I'll check Australian A League. I think the next evolution for like ESPN and other sports apps, I think, along with score updates and notifications, I think maybe once a week to have the option to get a table notification. Yeah. Because even for some of the leagues that maybe don't broadcast as regularly in the United States, like the EFL Championship, for example, like that would be a great way to be a reminder, West Brom look like they're going to promote or something,
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. That's I kind of wish it was. I mean, I think like everybody saw Leeds coming, but because we thought it would happen previously, I think.
Yeah.
But like that's a really good idea. Actually, you should sell that to ESPN or Yahoo
Yeah,
Sports.
We'll see. I'll see.
I have a push alert idea for you.
Yeah, we'll see if they go for it. But yeah. Anything else you'd like the listeners to know before we get into a couple of fan questions?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, just I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've covered a lot of stuff. I'm probably missing something entirely obvious because I suffer from male pattern blindness, where you just miss the glaring issue that you should be addressing. But no, I mean, like, just follow me on social media at Ted Ramey Media. That's for my Twitter handle. That's where I do most of my activity anyway. And, like, I try to keep people abreast of stuff going on with the Quakes, broadcast links, anything I do with the Quakes, that's where I pump it all and make sure people are aware of it. But, the other thing would just be for people to know that, how much fun I have doing, the Earthquakes and the Sharks and working for those two teams and being able to, represent them. Like, it's a blast. Like, I get a kick out of it. Like, I've been able to travel all over North America with the San Jose Earthquakes. Like, that's an incredible thing. And I always tell people that the first time it really hit me how cool it was. Like, I knew it was like when I got hired by the Earthquakes in 2014, I knew it was amazing. I was like, this is the type of thing that you dream about. But we were in Portland and we were taking a picture of, you remember it was the epicenter of soccer campaign they were doing, like how many miles you were from where the new stadium would be. And I was sitting there doing a photo shoot, and all of the Timbers Army started booing me. And I was like, oh, they hate me because I'm an Earthquake. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I was like, they don't hate me. They hate me that I am representing this Earthquakes laundry. And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And that's how I became obsessed with going into visiting stadiums. And I'm like, this is enemy territory. They don't like us here. And that makes me like it even more. So like, that was like really what made it hammer home of what a cool opportunity it is. And it's something that I don't take lightly, and that I really try to make the most out of with not just every passing game broadcast, but every passing day. I always want it to be, the soccer hour to be better, the game broadcast to be better, just to, have an awesome time with it and make sure that anybody who tunes in is having an awesome time with it as well.
Right. That's incredible. So the first fan question comes from Ricardo Carrillo from Facebook. Asks, what do you think is going to happen for the next 3 years for the Earthquakes? And do we have the right coach for this era in MLS?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of going long term, I think you're just going to see more of a production of the system that Matias Almeida is trying to do. He's going to acquire more of the players that he sees fitting his system. And I think that he is trending in the right direction. It looks like the Earthquakes are going to get into the playoffs this year. And that's knock on wood, but it looks like that's the way it's going. And if that's what it is, that's first year of Matias Almeida was an improvement over 2018. This year would ostensibly be an improvement over what 2019 was if they make the playoffs. Another year of his system, you would hope that it yields even greater results and that it keeps trending in that direction. I think Matias Almeida is the right coach. I know a lot of people are very tactical or very critical of his tactics. And listen, there's an argument for and against him every day of the week for every coach in the world. We can talk Pep. We can talk, Matias Almeida. We can talk whoever's tactics you want to get into. There's going to be people who are for him and who are against him. But I think what the Earthquakes put on the pitch is entertaining first and foremost. But I like what Matias Almeida is doing, and he cares. And I think he is the right coach for this moment in Major League Soccer. And I think that he's going to help the Earthquakes continue to get quality players and build quality players. Because think about Cade Cowell. Like, if the rumors about Barcelona are true, they probably are even that much more intrigued because they're saying that he's already getting this backbone from Matias Almeida, a guy who is notorious for making his teams get in insanely good shape. And they're saying he's already getting developed to the point where he's scoring and getting assists on at a league as good as Major League Soccer. I'm sure Barcelona's licking their chops because Matias Almeida's pedigree is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's exciting times. I think it's really hard to tell, especially in MLS, like, oh, this team is going to win this championship in a year or 5 years or whatever, because there's so many moving parts. This is a very transitional league where players are coming and going for various reasons, and teams can rise and fall very quickly. So I think right now, the way things are trending, I would say that the Quakes have the foundation to become a consistent playoff team, and then you go from there.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you want to hope for. The consistency first. I mean, look at the Sounders. They just made their 12th straight playoffs, and they have every year since they've been in the league. So,
right.
That's quite a benchmark, but that's what you want to be. So let's try and be that.
They made a few shockwaves with that tweet. It's like, we're not going to put an X in our name. We don't care about qualifying for the playoffs. We expect that. So we're just that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, they've earned that. I mean, that's the way that's the way it goes. But good for them. I mean, right? I mean,
yeah. You gotta tip your hat.
Yeah. Another fan question that we have is from Kevin Portillo from Facebook. Asks, how likely would Fisher cash out for Fierro and for JG Macias?
I saw the Macias rumors on Reddit. I have no idea. And I think they look at Carlos Fierro as a player is still coming into his own with the Earthquakes. So I don't know if that discussion is being had. It's really hard for me to gauge questions like that. I just know that I think the Earthquakes will figure out with Matias Almeida and Jesse Fiorinelli. I think they have a really good working relationship. Like when I've been on the road, I see that, Matias and Jesse are, out walking around, having coffee, eating together, doing their things. It's a really good working relationship. I just think the two of them will figure out what's best for the team. I think that if they feel that it's, if something's a good fit, I think they'll do it. But I think that there's been a lot of, thoughts on Fierro that he hasn't been as what people were kind of hoping for, but lately he's coming into his own and he's been more productive, in the recent history than Vako has. Vako is kind of quieted down and then he left for his international duty, and suddenly Fierro has been scoring goals and adding up to some assists. So you like to see it. I can't give a definitive answer on that because I don't know, but I think that they will do whatever they feel is best for the team.
Yeah, our fans here on the podcast, they love to throw some curveballs with these questions, and we appreciate it. It's a challenge for sure, and we'd like to give you the best possible answers, but sometimes it's easier said than done. But thank you guys so much, Ricardo and Kevin, for that. On the topic of Vako, real quick, I definitely want to wish him and Georgia the best of luck, because we'd love to see San Jose Earthquakes players in the Euros next year, and they just need to overcome one more hurdle in North Macedonia to do that.
Yeah, Vako's a good player, man. Like he's just, it comes in droves for him. It's like suddenly it's there, and then it'll quiet down and it'll come back. And the one thing that I really appreciate is because a lot of people used to criticize him for his defensive effort or lack thereof, but under Matias Almeida, his defensive effort has been really, really good. So, like I think that what fans used to complain about is kind of toned down a little bit. Sometimes he misses some open players, but his work rate is really much higher than it was previously. And, he's good. I think that it's streaky with him. I think that's what where the frustration with Vako stems.
Yeah. And I do want to leave you with this. I did check this. So if you want to be like me and look to FIFA 21 for some inspiration, so the oldest player in that game is Kazuyoshi Miura, King Kazu. He's 53 years old, and he plays for Yokohama FC in the J League. So your window is possibly bigger than you might think. So.
Yes, that's the important thing. But here's the thing. I'll tell you guys the game that I've been playing ever since I started working with the Earthquakes. Game notes come out. I look and I see on the other roster who's older than me. And I think Beckerman is one of 2 or 3 guys left in the league. And Beckerman's only the immediate name I can think of. And it's just I'm getting old. It's Beckerman. He's April of 92 and I'm April of 82 and I'm July of 82. And Wando's January of 83. And it used to be a lot more. There was a lot more dudes who were in the league and who were older than me. And it just gets less and less with each year. And I'm oh no, 40's coming. It's just, but I get a laugh out of it. But yeah, I mean, then Ramondo, when he announced his retirement, I was well, there's a big one. He was well over 40.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's definitely something that I was thinking about with RSL. Playing against them in the Western Conference in this season for the first time, not with Nick Raimondo, is a big deal. So yeah. And
how about this? Beckerman played for a Miami franchise, saw them collapse, and now would have had this year kind of not gone haywire with the virus. He would have played the new Miami franchise.
Yeah, Miami Fusion was his initial team there, and then now we got Inter Miami. Yeah, he should have never cut his hair.
I know, dude. He looked so good with the dreadlocks. It's just come on. Also, for me, selfishly, as a play-by-play announcer, it was oh, this is completely easy for me to identify. And then he looked like everybody else out there on the pitch. It's same thing when Nat Borchers retired. And then my next fear is that Lawless Abubakar is going to shave his head. I'm bro, come on.
Oh man, Lawless Abubakar's hair is great. It's
unreal.
He has that Lawless Abubakar has the Robbie Anderson, the wide receiver for the Panthers haircut. It's so great. And he doesn't have to hide it in a helmet. So
no.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Ted, for your time. This is a great conversation. We touched on so many different topics, and that was a joy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, I mean, like I said, anybody wants to talk Quakes, I'm these are people that are near and dear to me, and I'm always down to talk about the Quakes. I think the work that you guys are doing is awesome, and it's all part of the greater good for the game and for the league and for the sport, and it's awesome, man. And I appreciate it very much, and the fans want it. I think that's the most important thing is there is the audience there that previously was not being met, and you guys are taking part and giving people what they want and more talk about the Quakes and Major League Soccer. And I respect the hell out of you guys for doing that. And thank you very much for having me on. Anybody that wants to put up with me for a couple hours, there's my wife and no one else. So I give you guys props.
All right.
Yeah. Appreciate all your time. I really do.
No problem. You guys be good. Reach out anytime. Go Quakes.
Yeah, we'll do. Go Quakes. Have a good night.
See ya.
See ya. All right. So we want to thank our sponsor once again, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves so your group or team@roughneckscarves.com. And also, tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates from Nike and Adidas? Looking for a unique, completely custom kit for your youth club, Sunday league squad, adult, or even pro team? Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Let them help you design your new custom kit today at IcarusFC.com. And we are still open to suggestions. If you want to see a TectonicTakes kit, and we'll share it on social media, and we'll support Icarus, or not Icarus, IcarusFC.com. For you Smash Bros fans out there, you probably know why I made that mistake. But that was a great podcast, Will. It was a lot of fun, and the time flew by.
Time definitely flew by. Ted had so much to say. I mean, it was awesome to listen to him and all his things from his beginning to everything. It was great. And I mean, it was a long time, but it was a good time.
Yeah, he's the type of person that I think he's a jack of all trades. He could do so many things well, but I think he's at the right place for him at KMBR and all the other shows he does. He puts his heart and soul into everything he does, and he's an inspiration for us here.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
But for now, that's all from us here at Tectonic Takes. Thank you again, Will, for your work.
Of course. Thank you. And let's go Quakes.
Go Quakes.